live is working. My friend Ian living in the Philippines, has just tried to go live at 1 o'clock. He's tried 4 times, and for some reason, the system is not working. That is for him. And I just wondered whether there was a problem with the live transmission on YouTube. So hence my trying a live now, but let's just see whether in fact there is a live transmission possible. As I go to the chemist, as I go to the fridge to get myself a drink. Now that I'm on my live, I may as well carry on. You know, if you watched my video earlier on today, you will have seen my video I did outside in a little kubu, and therefore you'll be aware of what's been going on. But as also many of you maybe don't realize, I'm only recently back from... Hello, how are you? Well, obviously my live is working because Ian's is not. And I'm recently back from the Philippines, I should say, after having done my visa run. And as I let you know, I was an overstayer, not by design, but by circumstance. A very difficult last 5-6 months now, trying to sort it all out. Hello, Nathan. And hello, Ian. I see you're back there again. Well, as you can see, Ian, I'm here. Yes, I'm back from Bangkok when I did my visa run. And back to what I was talking about, and that is that it's a very stressful time being an overstayer because, of course, most of you who are overstayers, and I'm sure there's many of you out there, the main problem is that the fear of being deported, the fear of something adverse coming up against you. And I had all of those feelings when I was going through the process, so to speak. And the process of sorting it out has taken all of 5-6 months now to do. But finally, I'm back. I'm on my temporary visa, or should I say my initial one. And at the end of this month, I will be renewing it for my next 29 days. And thereafter, every 2 months. I had noticed, though, that the rate that is charged now for renewing your tourist visa has increased approximately 1,000 pesos per 2-monthly period, which means that really your stay here in the Philippines is equivalent to approximately 500 pesos a week. Small change, I suppose, to live in a beautiful country where you've chosen to make it your home. Hello, Kendi. How are you? Welcome to the channel. Yes, so beyond the actual cost of having to renew your visa every 2 months, many of you have chosen to take that route, and that is to have a tourist visa. Now, one of the things that I've somewhat missed on all of the time I've been here, and that is the importance, maybe, of all of us, considering the idea that we take a short trip out of the Philippines for a few days, maybe Singapore, maybe Thailand or Hong Kong. And by doing so before the 6-month period is up, you avoid having to jump through so many hoops in relation to encouraging you to have to pay additional charges and get certain documents. If you leave before the 6-month period on a tourist visa, you don't have to pay departure tax. You don't have to get an exit clearance certificate. And also you don't have to get an NBI check done on you. It's not that these items are difficult to get. It's just that they're often very time consuming. They might say a few days. An NBI, for instance, can be done within a week. Exit clearance, a couple of days. And they only really require that you demonstrate that you have a booking to go out. And as far as they're concerned, that's all that's required in that sense. They do their own little bits of checks to make sure you're free to leave the country. And bye-bye now. Yes, well, bye-bye. Thanks for coming here, Egot. And really, the only other thing that's involved in overstay is convincing those that make the decisions that the reason that you have become an overstayer, even though it is breaking the immigration law, so it makes you, in a sense, a criminal, is that you have to convince them that the reason that you found yourself in that position is an acceptable, genuine disclosure. I had a friend who started to help me go through the process, and unfortunately he saw a different way of looking at it. He suggested that I should be more professional. I should maybe just keep to the facts, maybe not elaborate, maybe not be so in-depth in my disclosure. I chose the opposite in the end because I didn't think it was proper, not in a moral sense, but also more in a, it's very hard to tell a lie and then remember what you told because it's a lie. If you tell them the truth, then it's much easier to remember. And that's what I chose, to tell the truth. And fortunately for me, I was awarded the opportunity to remain here in the Philippines for a further 3-year period, as long as I maintain my regular tourist visa applications. But I have a change of heart, and that is that I also, even though I'm 77, I'm not really that concerned. Hello DG and hello Deb, welcome. Good to see you here, both very regular. And I don't mean diarrhea. It's real easy, you get an honest John, yes. Well, I'm trying to be honest. Hello Elvin, how are you in New York? It's good to see you. Yes, so my way of thinking is that I found myself in that position and I put my hand up, and that was that I won't say weak, but I succumbed to the inevitable, or should I say, often found, where guilt is put upon us as foreigners to somehow control us. A Filipino can be very controlling in a relationship. They've got certain things they want done, and they know that you have the ability to often provide them. I'm not saying they're conning you, that they're scamming you. They're just trying to get the best out of this old car. And we as an old car like to think we're still able to drive along that road of life and perform all of the duties of an old car. And we forget that this old car needs a bit of service now and again, and it also needs to make sure it has a bit in reserve, otherwise it runs out of steam. That's my analogy, and that in itself summarizes how one can get in it. You know, you can have a family member, dare I say it, that gets themselves into financial stuck. You're the head of the household, you're the breadwinner, you're the major supporter of that family. And what happens is that you have placed upon your shoulders a somewhat, sometimes an impossible weight on those shoulders, given the resources that you have. Hello, Alvin. It's a little hard for me without my glasses to read what you're saying, but I'm sure it's very, very good. So I'm in The Philippines. Wow, you're in Pampanga now. You're not that far away from me, Elvin. I'm in Ballywag. So there you go. I'm just me. Yes, that's all right, Deb. You can be just you. But what I'm trying to say is that there can be, because we have to talk in general terms. There can be a silent pressure put on you, saying, "Well, yes, but what if the family find out?" Or "This is not good for the family image." One naturally then wants to protect the family, the one that which you're living with. And so I suppose without thinking, you tend to help bail them out, get the problem solved. And by doing so, you neglect to remember. Even though you do remember, you think, oh, well, I'll sort that out next week. And next week, always something else seems to come up. So for myself, it was a financial burden to be the breadwinner, to the point where almost every month my total resources were drained. And I mean in terms of my pension, that is. Not my savings, my pension. My savings carried on and helped to build the house. And of course, when you're not necessarily doing a major job in the house, the question is always, what have you been doing all day? Where have you been doing? And you think, can't you see? And a lot of that costs very little money, but you soldier on thinking, well, I'll sort it all out. And you'll be here till June, Elvin. Wow. No wonder you're quick on the ball, because you're here. You're not those time zone away. I hope you're enjoying your stay here. And Deb comes from the California state. Wow. We've got some people from way around. So my visa situation found myself where I was enthusiastically trying to be one thing, and on the other I was putting myself in jeopardy. And this proceeded to go from a small event to longer periods, and each time I found myself almost impossible to dig myself out of the hole that I got myself in. When I finally left Nagillion and headed off here, I was able to step off the wheel and concentrate through the very generous help of many of those around me to enable me to resolve the issue. And thankfully, I've been able to do that. And now my priority is to pay back what they have, in many cases, sacrificed to help me. And I'm doing that as best I can, as quickly as I can. And the problem is, I'm sure there are other guys out there that find themselves, I'll say, trapped in a relationship where they're not thinking of themselves. They're not remembering that number one is more important, because what use am I to anybody, whether I have a big pension or a little pension, if I put myself in jeopardy and risk being deported, being kicked out of the country, being kicked out after 10 years, what does that serve to anybody? And of course, the answer to that is nothing. So from now on, I'm going to be making sure that I travel a little bit more overseas on a more regular basis, simply because I do like travel. I like the feeling of being a traveler in an airport, arriving in a new city and discovering all of what's around, finding my way around with very little difficulty. And many of you might think, well, at 77, how do you do that? Well, because I've always traveled a lot. I've always been able to find my bunk of location, as my father used to call it. I take a mental image of something and I branch out from that. If you walk in circles without being crazy, you will always find your way back to the street from where you departed when you go for a wander around. And the thing is that it's important that for two reasons. One is it gives you a new breath of fresh air. It gives you an opportunity to see life in a slightly different way. When you've been in any country, any place for a long time, we tend to get stuck in a rut and therefore unable to always find the need or see the need to make the effort. We go to supermarkets, we go to market. Now and again, we go to a restaurant or some place that's a little bit more interesting than the backyard. But we do need to do that, even as a retiree. And I know you hate that expression, budgets, expenses, but as many of those channels tell you, you can live on $600 American a month, or you can live on 1,000 or 1,500. Every one of those is right. You can. But what you have to remember is it's the kind of lifestyle that you're going to be able to achieve on that level. If you're happy to go bush, to be living off the smell of an oily rag, it doesn't mean you're starving. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily unhappy. It means that you make the right choices as to what you eat. Keep yourself healthy. Always make sure there's food in your stomach and those around you. You'll do okay. And remember that many of the women that you hitch up with, that's been their lifestyle for the last 20, 30 years till you met them. The only difference is that what you brought to the table is you brought a certain amount of continuous security, a financial, like they say, it's a transactional arrangement. And for a young lady who's 20, who's suffered the difficulties of bringing up maybe a non-married child, non-married, of course they're not married, meaning they're single mums. Sorry about that. But it's hard bringing up children, even, they automatically think diapers, milk powder, all these things. And if you're a Filipino on very little money, if not really just relying on family and friends to help you, and they no doubt will help you, it's a hard field to hoe. And you come along, not only do you offer a certain amount of security, certainly financial, but you offer an opportunity for them to start to see life in a different way. And of course, there does lie the problem, because as we create a life that we're happy to live in, they're happy to enjoy the benefits, the fruits of all of that, only to, if it does go pear-shaped between you and them, to have to step back into what they had before. You can imagine what it must be like to suddenly have 100,000 pesos maybe coming in as an income into the house, and then to fall back onto maybe 18, 20,000. It's a big jump, it's a big drop. And therefore, all of the things that for the years maybe that you've been together, they've been used to, it takes a long time for them to reevaluate, reestablish, and reset their lives too. And in many cases, it becomes very traumatic for them. And they're very quick to remind you, no doubt, what a bastard you are that you've left them, or it's all your fault. Of course, they'll never take responsibility for the breakup themselves. It's always your fault. When in reality, it's a 50-50. It's not necessarily all her fault. And for us foreigners, I still believe, after all these years, that one of the biggest issues that we all face is speaking our English the way we naturally will, the way we express ourselves even right now, is a different way than where we maybe talking one-on-one with your wife or your girlfriend, because you'll find that talking the way you do, thinking the way you do, doesn't actually get through in many cases. They can be educated, they can be professional people, but if they don't understand the total structure of what you're trying to say, most of what you say is just words, and they pick up on a few. I mean, I'm deaf. I wear a hearing aid, and therefore, because I wear a hearing aid, I just pushed it in now, and I hear more right this moment. But over the next 4 or 5 minutes, the ear part will slowly readjust. In other words, it will wiggle when I move my mouth, and it will maybe not hear as much. So occasionally I have to do that. But by doing that, I suddenly hear everything very clearly, including my own voice. And when somebody is speaking English with a very thick Filipino accent, words like fish sound like pish, because when you're deaf, it's the vowels that you often miss. And if you miss a few of those vowels in a sentence, of course, what happens is you don't understand what they're doing, and you try and hear it a second time and a third time. And in the end, you really have to get up and go and say, look at me. Now just say that slowly to me, what you're saying. Then, even though it's pish instead of fish, it still represents a difficulty brain-wise to understand what they're saying. It's not quite as easy. Not everyone get what's there. That's right. That's so true, Deb. And the thing is that it won't change. You'll get more used to realizing that you have to simplify your sentences. What you're trying to say is very fundamentally, even almost sounds stupid when you have to say some things in such a very simple way. It's not to put down the Filipino in any shape or form. It's just, if you don't speak Italian and someone says buongiorno and you look at them and thinking, what's they saying? Oh, someone says they're saying good morning. Oh, right. Then every time everybody says buongiorno, you will understand that that's what they're telling you. And you might say, grazie, thank you. And as time goes by, you'll pick up on a lot of their words. And when you link those words into a sentence and they maybe do the same to you, you'll find that life will become much easier. Living with possibility. Hello, how are you? Said hi. And Deb says, you're very interesting and love your thoughts. Oh, thank you. Well, while we're talking about thoughts, I have had a thought. Oh, pop went the weasel. I'm having a Coke. Watering my whistle, as they say. And, my thoughts for the day are unlimited. Because, yes, you get dry spots where you think, now what is going on in my mind? And I can't tell you everything. But there are things that pop up in conversations that you might have with your partner, your companion, or your wife, that trigger comments. Many of them are just momentary thoughts, and often I get these things when I'm having a conversation with somebody. Kiwi, Australian, American, English, and I should have a little notebook where I write these points down, because like Ian often now and again comes up with a little list of things that maybe I should approach and use. And I appreciate those ideas because they spark in my own mind something maybe not exactly what he was talking about, but they cross over to another thought that's more in line with my thinking. And my thoughts for the day really are only that. They're my thoughts. And in the past, a lot of people have chosen to see them as reflecting on Jane, reflecting on the girls, reflecting on the family, reflecting on anything that they can annoy me with. And they're not, because yes, a lot of thoughts come from thoughts that I had when I was with Jane. There's a lot of thoughts that come here while I'm here, with those around me here. And for those who've just left to go back to Europe, he should be somewhere near Addis Ababa. I believe that's where he's going, and he's got 13 hours before he flies on to his next destination, the final one. Home for him. But he'll be back, and he'll be back and rejuvenated at it was his first visit here to the Philippines, with the intention of sussing out boots on the ground here, trying to find that elusive partner, somebody who he can share the rest of his life. Unfortunately, he's mid-term between being married and being divorced. And where he comes from, it's a long, tedious process. And he's taken that first step coming here. And he's met about 25 people online. And I think he, in the flesh, met at least maybe a dozen. And it wasn't that he was looking for a score in any way. He was not of that kind. And what he was doing, in a sense, a research. He was trying to see where they were coming from, the Filipina, what they were looking for. And I think that's something that we tend to forget. When we're looking, we know what we're looking for, or we think we know what we're looking for. But of course, if we don't understand what she's looking for, how are we going to know whether she's the right one? Because if you don't know what she wants in life, what her aspirations are, and her plans, or how she sees her future, how are you going to be able to decide whether she's the right kind of person that can join your dreams and aspirations? You know, it's like if somebody says to you, well, I want to be in business. Okay, you're a foreigner, you can probably help us set up in business. But just to be in business, what do you mean just in business? What kind of business? You need to find these things out. You need to see if she's the kind of person that truly could run that kind of a business, either with a bit of help from you initially, or getting the help from others that can give it to her. Or you need to steer her, guide her into areas that maybe you can see are maybe better suited for her personality. Because a lot of Filipinos will jump at the opportunity to be in business. I'm self-employed, I'm a trader, or whatever they want to call themselves. And of course, the foreigner pours in money to help them do this, and within a few months there's not much left of the original investment. In fact, the investment isn't really an investment, it's the donation you gave her to get herself started. You know, it's no good having a water station in a neighborhood. Great idea. It's always good to be able to sell water. People always want water. But unless you've got a way of delivering that water, picking up empty bottles to fill, and realize what the bottom line is, what you're going to make as an income. What's the point of investing $200,000-300,000 in machinery that can do the work if you've got nobody and no tricycle to go around and pick up the empties on a regular basis? And after all, there's probably somebody already doing it in your neighborhood. So what you're doing is you're stealing maybe a few of their customers away from them, which means that each of you are going to get less in turnover. So you have to look at something that is maybe unique, something that's more suited. And in many cases, some of you have chosen to support your partner through maybe education, maybe a nursing career that they've always dreamed of, that they just couldn't afford to go to college to do. Now, there's no reason why you couldn't help her achieve that, because when you're gone, she then ends up with something that is really, really important for her life and her future. You know, we really do have to look at life in a completely different way when we come to the Philippines, because it really is. It's another world. Yes, it's a beautiful country, but there's plenty of beautiful countries. I mean, I went to Thailand just a day and a half, and it reminds me how beautiful Thailand is. Just some of the suburbs of Bangkok. In fact, from the airport, they obviously chose that as a route, and it goes through very nice, leafy, well-kept areas. But of course, we know that there are other parts of Thailand and Bangkok that live in, if not the same, abject poverty that they do here. But we will need always to remember that we have the resources to help somebody, to help not necessarily the whole family. After all, you might say, they often say you marry the family, but your priority is the woman that you're with, and if she has children, obviously, if they're not being supported by the father, you then obviously step into that role, I suppose. You have to be not only the stepfather, but over time you become the father, especially if the son or daughter don't ever see their real parents. And that's a difficult task for some of you. Some of you will say, well, but he's a really good little kid, or she's a very cute little girl, so it's not so hard. But remember, we also have children of our own, and we don't want to lose fact that we are fathers, true fathers to others, even though we can have enough space in our heart to show the same love to an innocent child, no matter where they come from. Or misunderstood what they thought they were, or that one you fell for. Yes, that's true, Deb. Someone that really looking for long-term relationship, as a lot of people online are, can pretend that they are looking for the same thing. That's true. Yes. Once a parent, always a parent, as you say, Deb. Yes, that's for sure. And I take umbrage with those that say, oh, they're not your brats, and I think, well, no, that's true. That's pretty obvious if you didn't father them. But you've stepped into a role. And when you take on your lady, or if I was a lady and I'm taking on a man as my partner, no matter where we are, we take the package on. It's a whole package. You don't get part. You don't get buy one, get one free. You do often get buy one and get one free here, in the sense that so many of the young ladies here that, and even the more mature ladies, have at least got one child. And you have to remember also how important it is for women all over the world, in general sense, to achieve motherhood. And many young women who maybe haven't had children are not particularly worried that you as a foreigner are going to be the father of their child. And in fact, in many cases, they look forward to the fact that their child will be a mixed race child, will have opportunities maybe through birth to have opportunities to travel that they weren't able to have. So there are many pluses and many minuses anywhere we go in the world. And we just need to, I think, rather than worry about whether we found the right bar and the right drinks and the right American or English food that we can eat. We need to spend more time realizing what do we really want in life. Because life, no matter where we are, is going to be pretty much the same. The cost of living here is certainly a lot lower than that of the UK or Australia and America. And of course, some Americans will say that the cost of living is pretty high here. But of course, if you want your Texas steak from S&R, you're going to be paying 3,000 or 4,000 pesos for one nice big chunk of steak. But the other day we bought some steak, Australian steak, very nice marbled steak from Angus beef. And it cost us $800 pesos for 4 very nice little sirloin steaks. And it's the way you eat it. We had a guest here. It was cut up into very, very fine slices. And then it was stir-fried in a beautiful marinade. And it was served with rice and mixed vegetables. And it sure went down well. And again, good quality food. And we will be doing that again because it is enjoyable now and again to have an imported steak as opposed to one locally. The local ones are a little tougher. But of course, the way you cook it, if you do it the same way as an imported one, they will taste totally different. But if you maybe look at the locally grown ones and you use the opportunity to, what do they call it? Pressure cook it. You'll find this will be very, very nice. Magandang umaga. Same to you. Wow, good morning to you. Magandang gabi, really, it should be because it's afternoon. But anyway, thank you very much, Big Bags. But John, you aren't expected to sacrifice everything you are. No, I know, I realize that, Debbie. Rationally, we all have choices and we have just to manage and make the best of them. We sure do. It's good to see you, big dogs. That sounds like an American, that kind of title. And of course, as you know, I hate Americans. What a joke. No, I don't. And where was I? Yes, so when you come to the idea of coming to the Philippines, don't be put off by negative comments that either I make or others make about different situations. After all, we're just one little ant amongst 130 million people here. If we can't live a good life here on a healthy pension that most people get in the West, then there's something wrong. And the problem will always be in you, the person who decides to come here, the person that believes that they have an opportunity to come to another country and live the good life. It still takes a lot of courage to make that move. But let's not all be foolish in our courage. Think it out. Do a bit of talk to people. I will be putting my email address back on this channel so that you can contact me if you do want to get to talk about things more in depth offline, which you're welcome to do. And I welcome that you're able to do that because I like to think that I've got a fairly broad brush to demonstrate what you're going to be up against, from opening up bank accounts. Some people say you can't do this and you can't do that. Most of the time it's BS. You just use your common sense. You know, some say you can't open it without an ACI card. That's not true, because you will find some banks will be more than happy to have your remittances go through their banking system. And you might only just need your passport and maybe a barangay clearance to show that that's where you live. After all, they just want to make sure that you are who you say you are. And the same goes for buying stuff in appliance shops. You'll find that because your wife or your partner is applying for the credit, when they see that she's with a foreigner, it's amazing how quickly she gets her credit. Because, of course, it's still in her name and you haven't had to co-sign it, but they know that if there's a problem, you're the one that they know will bail her out. And it does happen. And just there's so many little things that there's just so many things you could talk about, but they tend to be not necessarily addressed. We tend to address, are there good gyms here? Can you find good hospitals? Can you get good medical help? Can you do all of that? Well, of course you can. It's a case of going out and finding it before the event. Make sure you have a person that is a good doctor that you can go and see for minor things, a small checkup even. Go to your doctor and get him to do a checkup on you, just like you would back home. And if you need to go and have some tests done, there's plenty of small clinics around that will do blood tests and urine tests and feces examination and all of the minor things, kidney functions. And it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Of course, if you go to St. Luke's Hospital, you're also going to be taking out a small mortgage. But that's because it's the #1 hospital here in Manila. When I say here, I mean an hour and 20 minutes away. But if you're dying, you want to know about the hospital down the road, whether they can give you a few more minutes to say goodbye to your loved ones. Because if you're relying on an hour and 20 minutes along the freeway, you might arrive a little stiff. So with that thought in mind, I'm going to let you go back to what you're doing and reclaim your afternoon at 2:10 in the afternoon. And I will remind you that Ian, living in the Philippines, has been able to finally launch a live today. Well, I think he has, because it popped up on my screen a few seconds ago. So good luck to Ian with his live, and if you want to go over and see what drama's appearing on his, feel free to do it. It's called Ian Living in the Philippines. So I'll say ta-ra to you all. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you might notice PayPal appears some of my videos below if you feel like maybe dropping me a coffee or two. I love coffee. It only costs 8 pesos, so you don't have to give a lot. But we'll no doubt catch you later. Bye now. Thanks for coming along, all of you.